Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Everything at thatkevinshow.com. Socials, email. You want to find me, you will look me up middle of the night, thatkevinshow.com. TV, podcasts, everything's there. You can find it. Please go and do so. I am very honored to have my next guest joining us, not just because I think he's a fascinating human being, and I don't find very many people that fascinating, but I also consider him a friend, and he has had the temerity to put his foot on the line and say, I'm about to put my name forward to go serve the public in a very public way. He wants to be the next city councilman from the Grand Island of Staten. Frank Morano, welcome back to That Kevin Show.
Kevin, it's great to be here. Thanks for those kind words. And I'm diving in head first. I'm excited about this. I'm pretty energized by this. And there's a big buzz on Staten Island and around the country about the changes that have been happening, not only in the country itself, but within the conservative movement, within populist circles. And I think you're seeing a lot of unusual, unlikely coalitions come together that you never would have seen on the same side of certain issues. And I'd like to do what I can locally to further that ball in the same direction.
That's a very interesting basis for your run. And I think you're going to, I think a lot of people are going to be kind of surprised when they hear this for the first time. In fact, I mentioned it to someone that you know quite well, that when you were working at our radio stations was an advertiser. And I said, did you hear Frank's going to put his foot forward for the Borelli seat? And the answer, the response, I did not expect this, but they were like, why in the world would he do that? And I think that you're right. And I think you're even seeing a microcosm of that unusual kind of day possibility opening up, even with the way Mayor Adams has pivoted on some of his positions on some of the issues down the stretch. So let me start with maybe a tougher question. And I don't know if you're running as a Republican or an independent, but either one, you're going to be in the much greater minority than what the Democrats hold in that body. How do you strategize difference making in the environment that you're wanting to serve in?
Yeah, such a good question. Look, this is a nonpartisan election, so there's no party label. You run with a made-up party label, but I am intending, after the special election in April, to run in the June primary and in the fall general election as a Republican. But honestly, this is one area where I think Joe Borelli, who currently holds the seat, has done a great job, which is, look, you're never going to get the city council to adopt a resolution that says every illegal alien should be deported. That's never going to happen. But what Joe's been able to do is find common ground on issue after issue that, guess what? The constituents of a progressive council member from Queens or Brooklyn, they're just as concerned about it as the constituents of a conservative from Staten Island. Two issues that come to mind are, one, property taxes. Why is someone with a modest one or two family home on Staten Island paying more in property taxes than Bill de Blasio's Park Slope, $1.5 million brownstone? It just doesn't make sense. Now, everybody recognizes that. And I don't mean to pick on Bill de Blasio, but it just is a depiction of how unfair the property tax system is and how much it's in need of a reevaluation and a rejiggering. That's something progressives are all in favor of. Yeah. The other issue is New York City retiree health care. We have cops, firefighters, sanitation workers, teachers, that they decided to work for the city and pass up higher income elsewhere in many cases because they understood that they were going to get a certain amount of their health care benefits paid for in retirement. Well, Mayor Adams and Mayor de Blasio have decided, well, you screwed up, you trusted us, and they're trying to pull the rug out from underneath the retirees. That's an issue where you see the progressives and what they call the Common Sense Caucus, which is sort of a moderate and conservative bipartisan entity in the city council, on the same page on. Now, look, there are some issues with respect to policing that I'm never going to be on the same side as somebody like Tiffany Caban from Queens or Youssef Salaam from Manhattan. But That's okay. Even if I'm in the minority, I'm going to give voice to the issues that my constituents are concerned about. And I'm going to put on the record and use the bully pulpit of the office why Staten Islanders feel neglected by City Hall in instance after instance. And I'm going to fight loudly, even if it's a losing fight, for why I'm hopefully going to be sent there.
Towards the end of Borelli's service, and he's done such an admirable job for where he's been and what he could do, and I truly appreciate all that he's done. But in that, towards the end, there have been multiple reverberations of maybe Staten Island floating the idea of seceding from the city. Where does Frank Morano stand if the city doesn't respond to your desire to improve things, particularly for your constituents that would be electing you? Where would you stand on a potential secession?
Look, ultimately, I think Staten Islanders should be able to control their own fate, right? If Staten Islanders, vote 70%, 75% in favor of municipal independence, there's going to be no greater advocate and champion of municipal independence than me. And I would say the same thing about, by the way, Venice or Scotland or any community. I don't think any community should be forced, or Greenland for that matter. I don't think any community should be forced to be a part of an entity that it doesn't want to be a part of. So I support Staten Islanders' right of self-determination. I have some questions about the logistics of how we would pay for services, and also the things on Staten Island that New York City owns 80% of. I'm thinking the firehouses, the police stations, the schools. I'm concerned about logistically how that would work. But here's what I am in favor of, and this is what I think Joe has done effectively, as have people like State Senator Andrew Lanza and others, is let's use the issue of secession to get more control over our own fate on Staten Island.
Okay.
Staten Island, for instance, you can't make a right turn on red. This is the only place, New York City is the only place in the world where that's the case. So, but we really should have that right turn on red. Why can't we determine that for ourselves? Same thing with parking regulations. We have no control over our own parking regulations. That's dictated to us from a bureaucrat in City Hall. Same thing with sanitation regulations. I got fined not long ago because I put my trash out the same time I had done for the last 4 years, which was in the afternoon, but they instituted a new regulation that you're not able to put it out before 8:30 because of rats. Now, that may make sense in Crown Heights or in certain neighborhoods in Manhattan. There has never been a rat on my block ever. So why should I have to play by the same, except for some mafia people that are a little too verbose? Why should I have to play by the same playbook as what Manhattan should be? Staten Islanders should get to control our own fate. So I'm not sure the practicalities of secession, but let's use secession as a cudgel to get more control over our own decision making.
It's like tariffs.
Exactly.
It's effective.
Exactly.
And I don't think you'd have to pay every resident of Staten Island $1 million to get him to get him to vote for it. We might have to do that for Greenland. We could spend less money than we've spent in Ukraine by giving everyone in Greenland $1 million. We're not going to have to do that in Staten Island. There's too much good. And by the way, friends, if you're listening, he's for early trash takeout rights. He's for right turns. How can you go wrong with Frank Morano being your city councilman?